What if I told you? What if I told you that I had a theory how to solve
Very convenient way to
global
travel.
poverty and even the immigration problem? So, I wanted to go into my interjection theory philosophy, which is what I call nation building philosophy. And it basically starts off with, how did America, in 600 years after its discovery, how did America become the biggest economy and the biggest superpower in the world today? And when I was thinking about that question, right, I ended up creating this thing called interjection theory. So the way in which America became what it is today is, the theory is based on the idea is, if you have a civilization that is in a lower stage of development, and then you have a country that is in a more advanced, more developed stage of development, that greater country taking over the lesser country, or intervening with that lesser country, will help that country to develop at a much quicker pace than ever before. Because the way it works is, and in order for me to go on to this next part, I have to basically give this disclaimer first, that this isn't making light of what the Native Americans went through, right? I understand, the human atrocities type stuff that was committed, where to them, which was horrible, right? So I gotta get that out of the way to kind of like to be able to emphasize that this is a theory, and I've got to kind of like make light of it, not like make light of it, but like skim past it in order to get to the meat of the philosophy and the theory. And it's not that I'm making light of. It's not actually that I'm making light of what happened to them. It's just that I want to go into like the theory or whatever, like that. So the Native Americans, when they were discovered, I think, as far as I know, and yeah, the thing as far as I know, that they were basically living in like small little villages, and they were basically like living in tents and things like that. And when Britain and other countries started colonizing America, these more developed countries um, had already had, towns, villages, and maybe even cities at that point. And if you were to let um, Native Americans to develop at their own pace, it could have taken them. Actually, I think I worked it out. In 600 years, they would only begin to start traveling by boats and ships. Not sure how I came to that conclusion, but anyway. So it would have taken Native Americans to like 1,000+ years to reach the same development of Britain at that stage in time. But because America basically intervened, and yes, it included invasion and all that, the horrible stuff, but what ended up happening is, by that country with a higher development intervening with a lesser development, that country, that place, that big mass of land started to develop at a much greater pace. So instead of waiting 1,000 years, instead it's taken America, obviously, like, America being established was done like a few hundred years later, or whatever, and I can't be bothered to look up the maths and the timing. But America in 600 years became the biggest superpower, and it was because of what I call interjection theory, which is, the word interjection came into my mind, where just like intercepting, intervening, interrupting or injecting like a cure into something or injecting something positive into something. So I came up with the word interjection theory. So America basically got where it is down to interjection theory. And because the reason, yeah, so America got where it is down to, so that's basically like the initial theory of interjection theory of how America, and it's starting off with how did America get to be the biggest power in not not just the biggest power, but they had the most economy, the most technological advanced, most intellectually advanced, medically advanced, and they achieved all that in just 600 years, where it's taken other civilizations thousands of years to get to that point, right? So anyway, so that's kind of like the initial, the first part of interjection theory, which is going into, how I created the theory and what I was thinking about when I basically discovered this thing. And obviously, other philosophers may have done the same thing. Other theorists, other experts are probably, well, actual experts are probably like gone into this type of stuff. But that's basically my interjection theory. I want to go into the second part. Let me have a quick breath. So right then, the second part is this next part. I think the part I missed is instead of waiting for that lesser country to develop over the period of like 1,000 years, instead, what we basically did was, or what they did, what not we, but they basically did was, they basically brought their their medical advancements, their technological advancements, their intellectual advancements. Instead of waiting 1,000 years, instead they brought those things like instantly, like almost instantly, like in a period of like no time at all, right? Whatever advancements they had, they would have brought into them in that lesser developed country. And that's the reason why the development ends up skipping. Because instead of waiting 1,000 years, for them to discover like electricity themselves, for them to discover how to build like brick buildings and stuff like that. Instead, we just bring that intelligence into and in that advancement into that society. So you're basically effectively skipping 1,000 years of human development and you're creating that human development instantly. And America proves this theory to be correct. Because this is how America literally, this is me just explaining history. This is exactly what America did. America, and then when it was established and then, the independence, then it became known as America. Because technically, America didn't exist until the word America, the name was America, was created and applied to the country by the people that eventually colonized it and took over it or whatever like that. So yeah. So that's the bit I missed, and I guess that would be the second part. Um, what else was there? I was in the middle of explaining something. I can't remember where it was. This is probably the reason why. Anyway. Yeah. So instead of like waiting for them to discover all these things, we just brought those things instantly. And then, I was going into, you know, I was about to mention like the American Civil War. No, not Civil War. American like fought for their independence, for them to become separate from like Britain, and then America became the country that would eventually establish what it is to be. but America did get where they were down to these other more developed societies and civilizations intervening and interrupting, or what I call interjecting their stage of development into that society or into that piece of land. So, right then, the second part of the theory is theoretically, if you were to able to replicate this interjectionary effect, you could essentially solve poverty within like a certain country. Because not only would they be bringing their advancements, they'd also be bringing their wealth, which would have been created down to their advancements and societal advancements and stuff like that, and business advancements and advancements in the monetary system and economic theories and stuff like that. So essentially, you could actually, um, you know, so yeah, so the wealth could, so the wealth then would be imported, and the way in which it could end poverty, and I think I'm gonna explain this thing next, where you would have to basically find a country that is basically at a state of not just economic collapse, but basically governmental and complete civilizationary, civilizational collapse. And then you'd have to have like a specific country then, like say they're about to economically collapse and all this kind of stuff. They would basically have to accept support, and that's when the replication element of interjection theory comes into play. Um, so, so I think I'm going to do this for a part two. So this is just part one. I'm going to end it here because I'm running out of breath. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you made it this far, maybe should be doing this earlier, but please like, subscribe, hype the video up if you've gotten this far. If you've gotten this far, please leave a like. Thanks. For more philosophy, theory, politics, understanding the universe, existence, divine theory, understanding everything, like and subscribe and tune in for more videos and for the second part of interjection theory, and when it comes to me entertaining how to actually re-implement it. And I bring in words like interjectionary rebuilders. I had this thing about calling it evolutionary, but I decided against that word, and it's interjectionary. So you'd have like interjectionary builders, interjectionary rebuilders, neutral interjectionary state, an interjectionary coalition, and all this kind of stuff. So stay tuned for part two. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you.